And so, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shimmering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Plz. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit. Yes. See, I've made more sense than 90% of WoW podcasts already, and I'm only 17 seconds in. The date today is the 24th of July, 2009. It is 8 p.m. British summertime. Yes, it is. It's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. In other times, it is other places. In other places, it is other times. And this is Blue Plz on WoW Radio. What a show we have coming up for you today. Yes, we do. Coming up on the show today, the fragmented community and the folly of getting all your news from a single source. We'll be discussing the ignorance of the player base and how perhaps best to fix that a little bit later on in the show. Also, 2 races or 1 class. Which would you choose? And does anyone actually give a flying... can't say that on air, about Worgen and Goblins? We shall find out just a little bit later on the show. Also, questing WoW vs Dungeons & Dragons Online. With its impending relaunch, we take a look at Dungeons & Dragons Online and see where WoW could perhaps learn from it. We'll do a little bit of a comparative study a little bit later on in the show. And of course, your choice to contribute to the show. It is the one, the only, the illusion of choice. Email in the Murloc at gmail.com. That is the Murloc at gmail.com. For your choice for the last topic of the show. It may get picked, it may not. That's why it's an illusion of choice. Yes, indeed. So, what have I been up to this week? Well, I've been off work because apparently I had swine flu. And I sort of still do. Or at least the back end of it. It's a mild dose of swine flu. It was unpleasant, but not exactly debilitating, I must say. So, I am feeling a bit tired today. So, if I do sort of fall over halfway through the show, then that's why. And I suppose you'll get a 3-hour show next week or whatever. But yeah, swine flu. Kind of lousy, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We will try and make an effort to finish the show before collapsing and dying on the floor. That would be nice. If I don't speak for like more than 5 minutes, call an ambulance or the fire department, or possibly both. Either works. It's all good. Or just get me a pizza. That'll probably get me back on my feet again. Always a good thing. Other than that, nothing all that exciting been going on, to be brutally honest. Looking forward to what's going to be happening at BlizzCon. And of course, WoW Radio will be there. If you haven't already guessed, we will be there streaming all the panels for you. Yes, that is more than DirecTV does. And you don't have to pay for ours. Oh yes. All the panels, exclusive interviews, plus a studio stream with a rotating cast of our very ever so popular and wonderful hosts. It's going to be awesome. Keep an eye on the website for more news over the next couple of weeks as to our BlizzCon coverage. It shall be the best, shall be the most complete, and there shall not be a shadow of a doubt about that. That is a promise from me. Now, if you are not already our IRC channel, if you happen to be listening live, you're going to head over to irc.mmo, irc.com, #WOW Radio. That is the place to be. Or you can click the chat button at the top of the screen on wcradio.com. Always a good idea. Well, ladies and gents, without further ado, it's time for this.
That sounds like it's mail time. Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it's mail time. That is the time where we read the mail. Should be rather self-explanatory for you, I would imagine. And if it's not, well, you're just not thinking outside the box, man. Not thinking outside the box. Oh, God. We'll do that again. Feel unclean. All right. First email is this. It comes from Martin Georgiev, or whatever the hell his name is. And he says, I'm in your troll being a mage. Okay. Hey, TB, love the show. I've recently took an interest in comparing vanilla WoW items to Wrath items. Vanilla items are in the 10th times lower stats, spell damage, etc. For example, Netherwind Crown has 32 spell damage, 26 intelligence, while the tier 8.5 hood has 113 spell damage and 87 intelligence. I'm pretty sure that's not 10 times lower, but whatever. Now, my elaborate point is that back in vanilla we were akin to kindergarten children waving around broken sticks, thinking it was epic to have 600 to 700 DPS. Poking at harmless kittens, unaware of a larger, more epic insert drop in here, please. Is that an instruction? Is that like a prompt?
Epic!
Well, there you go. World where hardcore shamans can pull out 6,600 DPS. Just wanted to present you with a weird deduction. I love the show very much. Shout out to my troll mage Kashika, with which I AoE Blizzard Ground to level 68 in 8 days total playtime. Wow, that sounds really freaking boring. I can't imagine what would happen if I just cast Blizzard for 8 days straight. Oh, God. Yes, indeed, that is exactly what has happened. And half of it is also due to the fact that the items back in the day were really badly itemized, whereas now we have items that are actually useful for our class. So, while it may be, say, only 4 times more powerful, it is infinitesimally more useful. I mean, if you look at the Netherwind Crown, if I remember correctly, the Netherwind Crown had something ridiculous like shadow resistance on it. Really helpful, Blizz! Let's think, where could that possibly be of any use? Not Molten Core, not Blackening Lair, not in AQ40. Oh, yes, that would be Nax. Wonderful. That's about it. And maybe in one fight, if that. Freaking terrible. And I remember being proud of getting my Netherwind Crown, but I must say that I wasn't so keen on the stats. Horrendous. As I recall, it didn't even have crit on it, or hit, or anything else for that matter. Absolutely appalling. Oh well, never mind. Next email comes in from Joachim Olsen, also known as Mojave, the level 54 troll warrior in the mountains. Okay. Hello there, TB, long-time listener, writing in for the first time here. Last night, when I was leveling my troll warrior, I have re-rolled as I noticed some of the fresher players in the guild commenting on emblem gear. One of them was commenting on how terrible the emblem gear looked. I later found out that he was using level 78 blues and one crafted epic. Oh, and a trinket from Zul'Amat. We had a long discussion about emblem gear and the upcoming Emblem of Conquest changes. He actually agreed with my opinion on how the emblem gear will allow people to get gear they don't deserve. He also shared my opinion on VOA. So TB, even when a newer player like this can understand how the upcoming emblem change is a bad thing, why can't Blizzard? Hopefully you'll read this if it gets in the air. Can you get a shout out to Fords on the Argent Dawn Realm and my guild Toxic Avengers on the Argent Dawn EU. Shout out so given. I'll tell you exactly why it is. It's because people are very much self-centered when it comes to this game. They don't see the wood for the trees. They can't see the wider implication of what's going on. As long as they get theirs, it doesn't really matter. So say, a player who wants tier 8.5 and yet, can't run the appropriate instance to get it, will see the emblem changes as a good thing, generally speaking, because, hey, look, it's great, free tier 8.5. It's the same people that like VOA. I mean, VOA is perhaps the worst thing that's ever happened to raiding. I'm not kidding, it really is. It's appalling. It completely throws... It's not just, actually, the worst thing that's happened to raiding. It's the worst thing that's happened to PvE and PvP. I mean, both sides should be up in arms over VOA. There should be way more chatter and angst on the forums about VOA than there actually is. I mean, providing a loot pinata like that is obscene. Giving all that gear away, especially on a random basis, I mean, the entire thing is bloody stupid. It encourages bad behaviour in pugs. Again, I bring up the example of the 800 DPS rogue who died halfway through the fight and yet got 2 pieces of tier 7.5. Did he deserve them? No. Did he get them? Yes. What does that tell him? All it tells him is all he needs to do is roll the dice. It doesn't matter how good he is at gambling, he just needs to keep rolling the dice and eventually he'll get his. Because of course there is absolutely no downside to being a bad player in a pug like that. Not at all. I mean, what's the requirement for entry? What are the barriers to entry to VOA? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So you reward players like that and it's a mess. It really is. Badges are just as bad. I can't figure out why people would think it was a good thing unless all they wanted was free gear. And if all they want is free gear, then these are not the kind of people we should be catering to begin with. At all. Let's face it. Got another email here. Let's see what we have. We do have quite a few today. It's from Jordan Johnson, also known as Mr. NNJ, Essence of RP American correspondent. He says this: TB, I've noticed a disturbing trend in several guilds. The policy of the guild is not to help a lowbie guildmate run through a dungeon. I find that this just increases the gear disparity in players and prevents new players to the raiding scene from actually getting in and raiding. I joined back at the launch of Burning Crusade and have been an avid role player up until last month. While I was applying for a raiding/leveling guild, one of the things I was warned about during my interview process was that there was no running of lobies through dungeons. First thing that came to my mind was, how in the 9 hells am I supposed to get geared up properly to even contemplate raiding if I have no support from the guild I want to run with? I think that on an off day, if a seasoned player of the guild is up for it, the officers should support lobby running through dungeons. Not a level 81 shunning Rage Fire Chasm and a level 15 picking up the loot, but a level 80 coaching the level 15. Personally, I plan on asking a class officer for help when my raiding character goes for his first dungeon. This is a common problem. Honestly, it really is. This has been happening since the dawn of time. Yes, it has. The problem is, right, that the content is so damn repetitive that by the time players get to the level they are, say a raiding guild gets to whatever it is it's working on, they've done the other content so freaking much that they don't want to face it. And you can't really blame people, honestly, for not wanting to go back to Nax, say, for the 50 bazillionth time to help some lobby get some gear. Now, if the guild is running off nights, then fine. That's cool, because generally speaking, there'll be enough alts going through there. I mean, that's generally the best bet. You run with the alts. That's what I found in various different guilds. If you are undergeared, they generally have an alt night where they run the previous dungeons with a different class. Because, hey, it's a little bit more interesting to run it with a different class as opposed to your main, because, hey, you've done it 50,000 times with your main already. Whereas you might not have done it with your priest alt or your DK alt or whatever. So you run with the alts, and you get your gear that way. The only problem I have is when alts seem to get priority over lower players. That just seems ridiculous to me. I've seen it happen before. When alts, who are never going to set foot in the top tier instance that we're attempting at the moment, they're just, hey, muck about classes for some of our regulars. And it's like, oh, well, I get priority. But why? Why exactly are you getting priority on gear that this other guy can use? I mean, this is something I cannot figure out. If you really want people to go back and help people in dungeons, then you're going to have to give them some kind of incentive. And there is no incentive right now. There really isn't. And it sounds selfish. Don't get me wrong, it does sound selfish. But realize that these people, I'm one of them, have been in these instances so much that they are sick of the sight of them. They don't want to go back in a million years. I don't want to go back to Nax. You know? My plan, once the faction changes come along, is I am probably going to leave my current guild. I like it, don't get me wrong, it's just I'm sick of the current raiding scene, I'm sick of the progression path, and I want to start on the new progression path. And that's going to be in a 10-man guild. I'm going to create a 10-man guild with a couple of people that I know, and sorry, you know, fans of the show, not really making it open to WoW Radio guys. I'll be trying to pick selective people because I just want to chill out with my friends for once. I want to experience the more casual side of raiding, the more small form side of raiding these days, and see what the other side enjoys. You know, see what the other guys enjoys, the other camp. And you know what? Maybe I'll get into it. And I'd like to play pretty hard on 10-mans, maybe just a couple of times a week, and just be good at the game. I mean, it seems to me that the new Colosseum is set up ideally for that. So if I'm able to, say, just raid a couple of nights a week, but raid hard, and raid the hard modes, and do well with other people who are on my level or better, preferably better, then that's a good thing, yeah? I'll have some fun again, I'll enjoy it, but the 25-mans just seem like, oh god, I just don't want to see them again. And I've explained why in previous shows the progression path is utterly shot. But when it comes to lower instances, then I am not sure why exactly Blizzard expects people to just go and help these guys through for the umpteenth time without some kind of incentive. There are other games that have incentives like that. Yeah, they have a mentor system. They have the ability to level down to the other guy and gain some benefit that way. WoW does not have that, and that, if anything, is seriously hindering people being nice and being kind. You know, it just doesn't happen. Now, last but by no means least, this one is from Arbane, and he says this: TV, you must be aware of the stupid change to logging into WoW that Blizzard have made. Now, in order to log in, you must log in with an associated Battle.net account. This seems all well and good, but some people have managed to use the merge other people's WoW accounts function with their Battle.net accounts. After researching this on the forums, I've noticed that this has happened to several people since the change has been implemented. I tried to contact Blizzard through the account billing hotline, but I never seem to get answered. So now after this change, I'm stuck not knowing what to do because I do not know which person has got my account. I would like to discuss this on the next show that you're doing. Well, there's not a lot of discussion there other than to say that what the hell is with the Battle.net account thing? I don't see the point. Why associate your WoW account with that? I mean, the security on my WoW account, for instance, is absolutely fine. I mean, I've got my authenticator right here. It's all I need. I've never been hacked. Probably never will be, thanks to the authenticator. So, I must say I'm a tad concerned if people are managing to steal other people's WoW accounts and merging them to their Battle.net accounts. That's bizarre. I don't know the details of that, but if anyone does happen to have any information, email themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com, and I will happily give out a wonderful, and I do mean wonderful, public service announcement. My name is TotalBiscuit. Slightly ill, but soldiering on nonetheless. This is Blue Plz on WoW Radio. And I've got some Aluvite here for you. It's the Somber Lay. I'll be right back after this to tell you about the fragmented community and getting your news from more than one source. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Gee, finding decent WoW news on the internet sure is hard work. So many sites to look at, and I don't even know which ones are accurate. Oh, if only there was someone who could help me.
Buffed! Did somebody call for help?
Gee whiz, it's Buff the News Fairy!
It sure is, kid. You have summoned me here, and I shall grant you one wish.
Wow, that sure is swell. But what should I wish for? A new bicycle!
The wish must be related to World of Warcraft news.
Even better! I wish for a magical site where all WoW news is collected into one place. I wish for a site where users could submit cool WoW stuff they found on the internet, and other users could buff it if they liked it. I wish for a one-stop shop where I could find the news that I want and filter it down to the things that I'm interested in. I want a place where the community can come together and make a better world for us all.
Granted! Behold, the wonders of buffed.net. That's BUFFD.net, because E's are for sissies.
Yay! Thank you, Buff the News Fairy. You have saved Azeroth.
Think nothing of it, kid. And remember, if it ain't buffed, it ain't worth knowing.
Yes, indeed, folks. I be shillin' as well as I be illin' here on Blue Plz on WoW Radio and WCRadio.com. Soldiering on through the show, suffering fatigue and blurred vision. I'll be fine. Yes. The nice, crisp mountain air.
In the mountains.
Yes, that will keep me awake. Right, so that was an ad for buff.net, yeah, BUFFD.net, and they're going to be our sponsors for BlizzCon. And I'm going to talk a bit about them, but I'm also going to talk about the sort of sad state of affairs of cross-promotion and the fragmented WoW community. Now, the idea behind buff.net is buff.net is basically Dig for WoW. Yeah, you should be familiar with dig.com, I'd imagine. Buff.net is the same kind of principle, but it's all WoW talk. So the idea is you can get all of your WoW news in one place, and you can find all the cool stuff without having to go out of your way to get to it. Now, the reason I like this, and the reason that I'm willing to put my seal of approval and weight behind it, is because the WoW community has utterly, totally lacked anything like this before. Yet they lack a central hub of cross-promotion, and as a direct result, what we have is a totally fragmented community, and a player base that is utterly and disgustingly uninformed. They really are. I mean, sickeningly uninformed. As in, we've got a bunch of players, a massive number of players, that wouldn't know what Wowhead was if we hit them in the face with it. Yeah? They don't know where to find boss strategies. They don't know how to look up basic stuff. I mean, we've got guys on the forums who ask the same questions over and over and over again. It's because they don't even know where to find the answers. It's pathetic. Now, you would think, of course, that between the massive amount of material that comes out of the fan side program, that the player base would be genuinely clued into what's going on. They're not. That's the really sad thing about it. It comes down to the awful thing. Like, here's an example of the real situation that is actually afflicting most fan sites at the moment. I'm talking about the official registered fan sites, as well as a number of the unofficial ones, which includes WoW podcasts, WoW movie makers, WoW bloggers, all kinds of things like that. Yep. If we get a front page on worldofwarcraft.com, you would think that that would be a big coup, right? You'd think that, hey, that's a massive site, we get a load of attention. Or maybe on the front page of WoWEurope.com. When we did an interview with Insidia, yeah, only 10% of the obviously 100% of referrals that we got, only 10% of those referrals came from worldofwarcraft.com. The other 90% came from Insidia.com. Yeah? Now, Insidia.com is nowhere near as big a site as worldofwarcraft.com, you would think. Yet, you'd be surprised. We get a lot of stuff posted on the front page there, and we don't get any attention from it. And this goes for any fan site. So, in reality, the idea of getting yourself on the front page of worldofwarcraft.com and thinking, hey, that's the best thing since sliced bread, that's really going to launch whatever it is creative work that I've put together, it's not true, sadly. It really isn't. And the worst thing is, there really is nowhere in the community right now, fan site or otherwise, where that can actually happen. The stuff that gets really successful within the World of Warcraft community tends to happen for random reasons. For instance, Nim's work. You know about Nim. Nim was the guy who did all those parody songs on YouTube. He didn't get popular as a result of, say, Warcraft movies or anything else like that. He just happened to get popular through YouTube. That's just what happened. And YouTube is not a promotional source for WoW material by any stretch of the imagination. It just happened to happen. There's a bunch of videos that you see happen to get really popular that way, and yet a bunch of really good machinima that just doesn't get anywhere. Same with WoW podcasts. You've got the most popular WoW podcast at the moment, which you're probably familiar with, is The Instance. Yeah, they're the most single popular downloaded podcast, yeah? Obviously, our shows are not too far behind, and combined with our station, we blow everything else out of the water, listener-base-wise, but they got popular because they launched it off the back of an already popular site. Now, as regards to WoW podcasts, you may be aware, of course, that I've been a bit militant on this, but to be honest, it only really comes down to the fact that I like quality material, and I don't find a lot of it in the WoW podcast community, and that's sad. You know, the podcast that I listen to on a regular basis, WoW-wise, I listen to a bit of Inside Azeroth, which is pretty cool. I listen to stuff that the Dead Workers Party does. Admittedly, not all of their stuff's WoW-based anymore. I also listen to Rawcast. Yeah, I think they're pretty good. And I listen to World of Warcraft. Those are the 4 podcasts that I can actually tolerate. And no offense to everyone else, but I've listened to the other WoW podcasts and they're not very good. They're not to my standards. Yeah? And I think the real problem with that is that there isn't a central resource for WoW podcasters, or indeed any WoW media creator of any sort, to come together and cross-promote their stuff. Now, this also spreads into something that you probably care a little bit more about, and that's the dissemination of news. Yeah? New stuff. Now, of course, you can probably reel off a couple of sites where you get most of your news from. MMO Champion, prime example. World of Raids. Some of you maybe read WoW.com or whatever. WorldofWar.net, BlizzPlanet. Yeah? BlizzPlanet's good for the sort of wider reading within the Blizzard community. Say stuff like the books and the comics and all of the other wider merchandise stuff and the expanded universe. BlizzPlanet's really good for that, and of course Medieval Dragon is very, very good at what he does. But you think about it, and it's like, well, does any of these sites really provide everything? And the answer really is no. WoW.com is probably the closest you're going to get to a complete news source. The problem is, it's a blog, yeah? And it's not very accurate half the time. I mean, everyone knows that I've had spats with WoW.com in the past for whatever reason. But the real issue right now that I have with WoW.com, and I think there's an awful lot, from what I've heard anyway, of other sites and podcasters and creators and celebrities and personalities within the WoW community that have a problem with WoW.com, is the fact that it is just a blog. and they are rather prone to inaccuracy. And the problem is that inaccuracy then spreads to the rest of the community. So if they say something, and it's just a blogger's opinion, but of course they state it as fact, then a bunch of other people start believing it. They take it as gospel. It's kind of sucky. That and the fact that WoW.com's not very good at sourcing their material. They don't properly credit the people they take their news from. I mean, there was the incident a wee while ago, actually, that involved TankSpot. If you remember correctly, they took a video from TankSpot and didn't bother to credit them. And then when TankSpot got a little bit upset about it, one of their co-editors, and that's his WoW.com's co-editors, went on a hissy fit and called them all a bunch of elitists. Yeah, that's really the kind of attitude we want to foster within the WoW community. Slash spit on that, quite frankly. So yeah, getting your news from a single source that is controlled by a single group of people is very unhealthy, particularly when they get opinionated. You know, we've got even sites like MMO Champion, as good as they are not 100% unbiased by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, we've got BB right now claiming that the new Alliance race and the new Horde race are going to be Worgen and Goblin, and is so certain of that he's willing to run through the streets of Paris naked if he's wrong. So one would assume he probably has inside information, but again, that could just be an opinion to pull people to the site. You don't know what people's ulterior motives often are in this case. Now, to me, that's why buff.net is actually so important, and why people should start using it. The WoW community, as a result of these sites being all over the place, and as a result of... It's not so much that Blizzard doesn't cross-promote properly, I don't think they've actually got the power to do so. I mean, you look at the fan site program right now, and they run the gamut. They really do. And I don't think any of the fan sites can genuinely say, we owe our success and our popularity to Blizzard. In the sense of, hey, Blizzard promoted us and we got big. No, not even close. I mean, WoW Radio, for instance, didn't get popular because Blizzard promoted us. Heck, for a year and a half we were blacklisted for whatever reason. Curse didn't get popular for that reason. WoW Wiki didn't get popular for that reason. All of the fan sites. Not a chance. That's not why they were successful. Blizzard just doesn't have the power, from what I can tell at the moment, because their website doesn't get as many views as you might think. So what you need is a community-driven source of news which will allow people to submit and discover new sources of information. Now, blogs are particularly good for this, but again, I've had issues with blogs because some of them I like, some of them I don't. I haven't found a genuinely good blog that I would actually stick with that provides good news and comment on the World of Warcraft. Not at all. I haven't found one. I don't know, maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place, but what I can tell you is that, say, if somebody submitted an article to buff.net, and it was a good article, and I had a read of it, and a lot of people had said, hey, this is a good article, and there was a good discussion going on in the comments section, I would be likely to subscribe to that blog. Whereas right now, the only WoW blog I subscribe to is cwsargaris.com. And that's not even a news site. That's just comedy. And it's great comedy, don't get me wrong, but it is just comedy. So, I think what is very important within the WoW community right now is to make sure that the populace is generally educated and generally up on what's going on. And they are not susceptible to the smoke and mirror strategies that come out of Blizzard these days. You've got to bear in mind that right now, Blizzard is driven by Activision, and they are perhaps more commercially motivated than they used to be. You know, every company's a company, we know that, and every company's objectives are to make money. But in the situation that we're in right now, it's perhaps a little bit more that it used to be with Blizzard. Now, Activision's a bigger company than Blizzard. Activision is a publicly traded company. It's driven by the shareholders. The shareholders want to see results. They want to see quick returns on their investments. They're not necessarily so concerned about consumer goodwill. It's unfortunate. So, every now and again we get some crazy stuff that comes out from Blizzard that I see as smoke and mirrors. Like this whole Worgen and freaking Goblin thing. I'll talk about that a lot later on in the show in detail, but I see that as actual deliberate placement. I don't believe Blizzard is stupid enough to accidentally put something in the files that other people could quite easily data mine. I think this is just yet another piece of smoke and mirrors. Now, we've got 3.2 coming out, which is there is a massive selection of issues that I have with 3.2, and you've heard them in the previous shows. I think 3.2 is one of the worst looking patches I've seen in a while, aside from the Isle of Conquest, which looks genuinely fantastic, and the 5-man. I'm thinking the raid content looks pretty bad. The raid content is looking incredibly disappointing, and we know what the special little drop-in we have for this raid content is.
Not one, but 2 Jormungandr worms.
It's the universal drop-in of phoning it in, folks. Phoning it in with the 3.2. And what do we hear about? We're not hearing all of the critique. We're not getting all of this information and this news and this discussion and comment and debate coming in from the community saying, hey, Blizzard, this is not acceptable. This is not an acceptable level of content. It's been like 4 months since Old War came out. It's probably going to be 5 before this content comes out. You're telling me that in 5 months this is the best it could come up with? Now that is something that I would expect millions of players to be shouting from the rooftops, but it just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen because what you've got is a population that is genuinely underinformed. Why are they underinformed? Because they're not getting their news from a good location. You've got some people that get everything from WoW.com and they're just accepting whatever opinion the blogger happens to have today. You've got some people who get all their information from MMO Champion, and yes, they'll know quite a lot about some of the upcoming content, but they won't know anything else. It's like people just don't go out of their way to research things these days. The amount of stupid things you see on the forums, it's obvious that people don't research properly. They don't know their facts, and that makes them ineffectual. Now, I think that Buff.net is a great opportunity for media creators as well as commentators within the WoW community to come together and cross-promote in a friendly competition. Yeah? I'm not expecting the WoW radio listener base to go after WoW.com or whatever, and I'm not going to go after them either. You know, I don't hold personal grudge against this site. I just happen to think that people should take everything they say with a pinch of salt, because at the end of the day, they're only doing what I'm doing. They're not a definitive news source. I've never pretended to be a definitive news source. This isn't a news program. This isn't a news network. If you're getting all your news from WoW Radio, then the chances are that unless you're listening to the BlizzCon footage, of course, you are horribly behind. What you're getting here is comment, discussion, debate, punditry. And that's fine as long as you take it with a pinch of salt. It would be good to see a lot more voices added to the debate. More bloggers, more podcasters, getting their podcasts out there for other people to listen to, and of course, opening them up to constructive criticism to improve their work. And I will happily provide that as long as you have a skin that is at least thicker than a piece of paper. Not a big fan of people that can't deal with criticism there. And it's just unfortunate that it's taken this long for something like that to happen. The WoW community is all over the place, let's face it. There's nothing that really unites them other than the fact that they all play WoW. Now, I'm not suggesting that the entire place comes together and holds hands and sings Kumbaya around a campfire. No. There is a lot of people whose hands, quite frankly, I would not want to take hold of. The unwashed masses, as it were. Not a big fan of those people. But what I would like to see is some intelligent discourse outside of, say, the elitist jerks forums. And you don't see an awful lot of that, and that is really sad. You know, I would like to see the idiots on the WoW forums become the minority as an influx of educated people come in, having read all of this stuff on, say, Buff.net. Because it's all there. The community is submitting good articles. It is hunting everything down. It is creating a nexus, as it were, for cross-promotion, and a nexus for the confluence of information. News dissemination. Accuracy. If you post BS, you'll get called out on it. Not a question about that. And that's a good thing. Quality control is something that lacks within the WoW community in general, whether or not it be in fan sites, podcasts, machinima, whatever. Whatever is produced, whatever is said, there's a lack of quality control, there is a lack of vetting, and I believe this site can actually help. And yes, hey, we're getting paid to promote them. You know that right off the bat, but let's face it, have we ever promoted anything that sucked? Didn't think so. Not a chance. You're listening to WoW Radio. My name is TotalBiscuit. This is Blue Plz. This is vodka. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you're listening to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio with myself, TotalBiscuit, struggling through the swine flu. Oh, yes. We'll survive. We're about halfway through the show, and I haven't fallen over quite yet, so that's always a good thing. Vodka is something I could use right now. It's a good suggestion by Copperclani. Right, so, we heard about the possibility of Worgen and Goblins. And people were up in arms and getting all excited and... may I ask you one question? Why? Why are we excited about this? Why are we thrilled? Do you understand? I certainly hope so. Guys, let me get this out here right now. New races are not real content. Period. Here's why. If indeed it is the case that Worgen and Goblins are new races within the expansion, which we can assume by now goes by the name of Cataclysm, and which will probably maybe be announced at BlizzCon, I'm willing to put money on that. Oh yeah, anyone willing to take that bet with me? Didn't think so. If that is indeed the case, then may I point this out. That's 2 new races that need 2 new 1 to 20 starting areas. That is 2 new races that most likely will require 2 new capital cities. That is 2 new races that will require all of the armor sets remade so that they will fit on them, a whole new set of animations and emotes, a whole new set of voice acting. Oh yes. A massive, massive selection of art assets. You know what that smells like to me? Sniff, sniff. Oh yes, that sounds to me like...
Not 1, but 2 Jormungandr worms.
Effort. It's another Smoke and Mirrors game, folks. I'm sorry, but it's exactly the same as what happened with the Blood Elves and the Draenei. I said this back in the day. The least exciting feature about TBC was the new races, and for some reason people went nuts. I'm like, oh my god, new races, yay! It's like, I get a new pony, and new hair ribbons, and... Oh god, I hate people like that. They make me sick. Seriously. What the hell are you guys doing? I mean, what you've got here is, if you ever develop a new race, you've got a disproportionate amount of development time and effort put into something which is relatively pointless. It's inert. It's neutral in terms of how it actually adds to the game. It doesn't do anything. It's not a new class, for instance. It doesn't shake up the very foundations of the game. Yes, I imagine it would add a few things for the Lorehounds and maybe for the RPers, but let's face it, they are, again, in a tiny minority. While I would like to support the RPers, this is not a good RP game. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not designed that way. And catering to that with a disproportionate amount of development time is a bad idea. I do not see the point. If they are adding new races, I really do not see the point, because think about what could be developed with that. So right, you've got 2 new starting areas. Let's consider what could happen if you took the development time and the art assets that you were going to use on 2 new, brand new starting areas, yeah, which bear in mind will be at least Wrath of the Lich King quality in terms of questing, because they don't tend to do a step back. I mean, let's face it, the Bloodmist Isle and the Exodar and all the other places, Ghostlands and stuff like that, were pretty good. They were better than the average starting area, because of course it was TBC, questing had advanced quite a bit since the launch of WoW, thereby the starting areas were better. Now if you were to take that effort and you were to throw it into some of the older starting areas, you could have some way more exciting stuff going on. You really could. You could invest that time in improving the old content that really desperately needs a touch of the Wrath class when it comes to quest design. Yeah, Wrath of the Lich King. One of the best things about Wrath, the quest design was top-notch. It was stellar. It got me interested in questing again, and I stand by that. I stand by saying that that was a real triumph with World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King. What I don't stand by, of course, is the development of the new races with TBC, and I certainly would not stand by a repeat of that. I understand that something was required, the kind of poster child content, to release it and say, hey, look, new races, this is a very visual thing that we can get on the shelves, this is a very visual thing that we can get out to our promoters, we can get it on sites and stuff like that, and it will excite people that way. But I don't think that WoW is really going to need that anymore. I think we've passed the stage where we need shinies in order to attract people to the game. Game's quite popular these days. I don't think we really need that. Let's be realistic here. Now, of course, when I mentioned this in the thread on the WoW Europe forums, people QQ'd and bored and cried, as they tend to. Rather sad, really. Defended it by saying, oh, of course it's a new content. You know, you get to play this through again, blah, blah, blah. Right, I'm sorry. Playing the same stuff through again is not content. That's the point. Why would you want to play through it again? You already know that, say, hey, yes, the first 20 levels are going to be pretty good, but 20 to 60 is going to suck, 60 to 70 isn't going to be much better, and then after that, of course, you get to do Wrath content, which is decent. Why do you have to add new races for that? If you want to roll an alt, do you really think a new race is going to make you roll an alt? No. If you actually genuinely wanted to roll an alt, then you're going to do it anyway. And let's face it, you're rolling it out for a new class and a new play experience, not a new skin. You want a new skin? Let me tell you what you do. You do something that's against the terms of service. Oh, yes. You do a model swap. I've seen this. I've seen this on YouTube. Some guy swapped the jungle troll model in and actually did leveling up as a jungle troll. You want to do that? Do it. Alternatively, if you want the ghetto solution, take a picture of a murloc, cut it out, and stick it to your screen above your character. Or better yet, on top of your character. Hey, look, you're leveling as a murloc. Isn't it magical? Or, you know what, close your eyes and make-believe. Hey, I come from the school where we played Angband and Umoria and NetHack. Yeah, we played roguelikes. You didn't get to see a new skin. I was an @ sign. Yeah, that's what I was. I was a heroic @ sign, and I was slaying the uppercase V's and the lowercase W's. That's what I come from, the old school of RPG dungeon crawling. I don't need some shiny skin to make me roll an alt. There is no way I would roll an alt at this point in time, because the leveling is awful. Really bad. Yeah, it's past its best, let's face it. It was good at the time, and if you're new to MMOs, you can probably stomach it. I mean, that was me new to questing MMOs right there with World of Warcraft. New to the XP grind. Previous MMOs that I'd played didn't have an awful lot of that. Earth and Beyond, one example. That's something I had played. I'd also play PlanetSide. Again, not a level grind. And even then, being new to it, being fresh-faced to it all, and how well it was designed at the time, I still quit 6 times before level 60. 6 times! That is the tolerance that I had for questing. That is the tolerance I have for leveling up. So if you're going to tell me that you want to go and have me level an alt again, on the basis that I get to look like a freaking wolf on 2 legs, or a green gnome, then you have another thing coming. You could make the new race Octopus on a motorbike, and I still wouldn't play it. You could make it not 1 but 2 Jormungand worms, I still wouldn't play it. It doesn't matter. And how many people are there like me? I'm willing to bet. Well, I don't have numbers for this, because to be honest, there isn't any way to get those numbers. But I'm willing to bet that over half of the WoW population does not have an alt above like level 10. Seriously. That they just play one character and one character alone, because they can't stomach the grind again. Maybe they've rolled a DK, because, hey, the DK grind is a lot easier. All you've got to stomach is 60 to 68. And if you manage 60 to 68, then, hey, you're back in Wrath, which has good questing. We know that. We've accepted that. Now, the question was brought up in the debate. It's a non-issue. This is a non-debate, I must say. Anyone that pretends this is a debate, and if it shows up on WoW.com or whatever, and they pretend it's a debate, don't believe them. It's not a debate. This is not a debate. The debate was, would you rather have 1 class or 2 new races? This ain't a debate. One is content, one isn't. Yeah? Having a new class affects the entire fabric of the game. It affects the entire balance of both PvE and PvP. It affects group makeup across all levels. It does. That's what happens when you bring in a new class. You are leveling with these new guys, you are playing with these new guys who've got different abilities and different capabilities, and it shakes the entire game down to its very core. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't play that class. Obviously, it provides new content for people that do play the class, and yes, I can accept a 5-level span starting area for such a class. That's fine. But what it really benefits the game on, and you may argue that DKs have not done this well, and you may argue that DKs are imbalanced, and I would agree with you, to some respect there have been issues with the balance, but that doesn't mean that they were not meaningful content added to the game that actually really, genuinely changed and shook up the entire world. It did! It just plain did, and if you don't think that way, then I'm sorry, I can't help you. Because you're very silly. That's just the way it works, guys. Add a new class, see the entire thing shaken up. Shakes up PvP, because hey, you've got to adapt your team for the use of Death Knights, assuming you choose to use them. Alternatively, you have to adapt the fact that your team is going to be coming up against Death Knights. That counts more in Arena than it does in Battleground, but hey, still, you're going to have to count the fact that you're dealing with Death Knights there. You're going to have to count that you're dealing with Death Knights in a raid environment. You're going to have to make space in your raid for them. You may have a number of abilities and stuff that you can use with the Death Knight that are preferable to use in specific raid encounters. So that changes the way that raid encounters are designed because they have to account for the presence of the 10th class. So yes, that does change everything up. It shakes it up. Not a question about that. That is real content. Races aren't. I hate it. I absolutely hate it when people get taken in by this superficial rubbish. I wouldn't mind if all it was a new skin and that was it. Hey, new skin, new animations, fair enough. But it's not. It's so much more work than that. You will invariably have that new starting area. Look at all the work that was put into that. Look at the size of the freaking Silvermoon City and the Ghostlands. Look at the side of Exodar and Azure Mist Isle and Blood Mist Isle. Look at the size of those zones. And for what? For what? How many players have you really got that have actually leveled through those and have genuinely found some value there? How many? Very few. What you need is content that will actually keep the veterans playing. I don't understand why people seem to have this belief, and why Blizzard obviously originally had this belief with TBC, that adding Draenei and Blood Elves would make a damn bit of difference to the new players that came into the game. Who cares? They already had a choice of 8 races they could play anyway. They haven't played any of them, so hey, they're just as likely to pick Giant Cowman, or Little Gnome, or Undead, or Human, or Night Elf, or whatever, than they are to pick Space Goat or Blood Elf. They're just as likely, because they haven't played them before. The new content is all there waiting for them to experience. It's all brand new and shiny. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference for them. You know, with Wrath, Blizzard really seemed to understand that the addition of the main centerpiece of content with the expansion had to be aimed at existing players. Because you know what? Maintaining your subscriber base is way more important than having a revolving door. Because right now, WoW is not friendly to the new up-and-comer. It's the longest grind ever for the new up-and-coming player. It's got a ton of content which they will never, ever see. And by that, I mean all of the 60 raid instances, all of the 70 raid instances. Yeah, a ton of content that has actually been there and served its purpose for the existing player base. It's useless. It is useless for newer players. So they've got to make it to 80, and then they have to contend with a hostile environment whereby they have to get into the endgame content, and they're going to struggle to do that, because getting in there is going to be incredibly hard with the way that people are set up right now in this linear setup, the linear progression path, that they're on the bleeding edge of content. Even the crappy guilds are past Nax. Yeah? So they're not going to get to go into Nax or anything like that. Heck, good luck even running heroics. Even with this badge change. Because you want to know why? I'll tell you why. You think the badge change is good for new players because it gets people back into heroics? Think again. You want to think again? I certainly hope you want to think again, because I just told you to think again. Think again. Here's why. Ever heard the phrase LF3? Heroic Link Achievement. Oh, you will. If you haven't already, you will. It started in TBC with the gear. It started there, saying, hey, you need tier 6 equivalent gear for some highly inexplicable reason in order to do this rubbish. Hello? Is this thing on? I appear to be stuck inside the internet. Please send help. Well, that wasn't very nice, was it? Internet connection fell over. So where was I? Yes, I believe I was talking about the hostile nature of WoW to the new player at this point in time. So yes, back on with the rant, folks. Back on with this particular tirade. It is unfriendly. It is the most unfriendly point in history. And the reason that this badge change is not going to help out with newer players getting into heroics is because of linking achievements. This has happened since TBC, and it is continuing to happen to this very day. It is. People expect a certain level of play from the people they go to heroics with, and sometimes that level is incredibly unreasonable. For instance, I can't get into heroics right now because I don't have the epic achievement. Yes, I did just say. Epic! You don't know why I don't have it? Because I wear the plush sash of Guzbar. Yeah, I've got tier 8.5 level gear and some best in slot and stuff like that, but I've got the plush sash of Guzbar. Thereby, I'm not going to get into heroic because I don't have the epic achievement. So pathetic. So what Blizzard needs to concentrate on right now is not adding new pretties. because that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the new players, it doesn't help the veterans. The veterans want a new class, or they want something new to play if they're gonna have to level through all this stuff again. And the new players, they need a better leveling experience and a better way to get to 60, and in this case get to 80, and get involved in the endgame content without running up against a socially engineered brick wall. It's entirely possible that's gonna happen. I'd put my money on it. So, in my opinion, no to new races. Absolutely not. There is not even a debate as to whether or not two races are better than one class or one way or the other. Classes content, races aren't. Simple as that. My name is TotalBiscuit, and you're listening to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio. You know what? I'm going to play some more Equilibrium because, hey, they have a song called Snuffle. Wonderful. I'll be right back after this, folks. Hopefully the internet will not fall over again. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. Hey you! Yes, you, the one listening to this trailer. Yes, I am talking to you. It's high time you realise that you suck. Yes, you are in fact terrible at World of Warcraft. Now I understand, this revelation could be shocking, perhaps even upsetting, but it's important for you to know just how awful you are. It's okay though, before you go and do something rash, we have the solution. No, it won't cost you anything, and no, it won't involve invasive medical procedures either. All you need to do is listen to Just Plain Better on WoW Radio, the theory crafting, number crunching strategy show hosted by Natural 20. Guaranteed to make you better at your class, more attractive to the opposite sex, and a success on the internet. What could be better? Check it out on Monday, 6 p.m. British Standard Time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern on WCRadio.com. Yes, indeed, folks, you do suck, but it's okay, because we have the snake oil to cure your ills. It's Just Plain Better. It's going up on Monday. It's the pilot show, so I expect you all to be there and show some support for our new host, Natural 20. It's going to be doing a great job, going to be bringing you the numbers, bringing you the logic, the rationale, and some entertainment to go along with it. I expect to listen and learn about classes that I don't care about. It'll be great. So I can learn how to criticize other people more effectively. I'm not sure that's really what it was for, but, it'll do. Right. It's the second of last segment of the show where we tend to get a bit more laid back and go a bit more general. And those concerned that the stream dropped earlier, yes it did, but we didn't lose any of the archive material. If you listen to the podcast, well, you probably want to notice, other than the fact that I'm telling you right now, that yes, the live stream did fall over itself for no apparent reason today. Oh well, never mind. Now, I recently got into a game that some of you may be familiar with. Now, I'm taking my break from WoW, my hiatus, as it were. My sabbatical, that's what I'm calling it. And at the moment, I am participating in a beta, which is it's not so much of an open beta, but it's not NDA. It goes by the name Dungeons & Dragons Online Eberron Unlimited. Now, I like trying out new MMOs, if only to discover why I hate them. And I've been very good at doing such a thing. So I played EVE Online for a little while and then realised that actually I hadn't really been playing it. I'd just been sitting around in Empire getting skills. I was like, well, what the hell am I doing? So I dropped my sub. I played WoW for a little while until I realised, oh, it's got WoW-style levelling and I don't like that. So I stopped levelling and stopped playing. And it certainly wouldn't be the first game and no doubt wouldn't be the last. However, I've noticed the DDO has actually got me enthralled in a way that other games have not managed to do, and I would like to spend the next 13 or so minutes explaining why that is, and how World of Warcraft could perhaps learn from that. So this is what I realised over the course of 4 years playing WoW. This is something I should have known before I even started. When it comes to RPGs, I like two things. No, that's not true. I like three things. I like going into dungeons, I like killing big dragons, and I like getting big swords from big dragons in dungeons. That's it. That is what I like to do in RPGs. I.e., I like the dungeon crawling, I like the boss fighting, and I like the loot. Yeah, that's what I like doing. And anything that allows me to do that will have my attention at least for a while. Now, I suppose this really goes back to some of the first games that I ever really played in the RPG genre. In fact, perhaps the first game I ever played in the RPG genre, which was Angband. Angband is a roguelike game. You may be familiar with the term roguelike. Roguelikes don't have any graphics. They have a tile set based around ASCII 2 characters, meaning that, yes, your hero is an @ sign and you are fighting giant uppercase V's and all sorts of things like that. A lot of imagination involved in those kind of games. And that's fine. That's cool. Because you can deal with that, because it allows you to fight bosses and get loot, and crawl dungeons, and that's why I like it, and indeed, occasionally still play Sangband, one of the variants, to this very day. It's that good. I'd recommend that everyone try a roguelike at least once. Sangband is a good bet. Zangband isn't, because it'll kick your ass. NetHack, always a good idea. The original flavour of Angband or Umoria. Anything like that, go try out a roguelike, and you'll see the yesteryear of RPG dungeon crawling and why it is appealing. Now, D&D, of course, is the granddaddy of dungeon crawling. It pretty much invented it. And D&D has spawned a number of games, some of which are better than others. I recall very much enjoying Icewind Dale. Not so much a case of enjoying Baldur's Gate. I don't know what it was. I think it was just the way that Icewind Dale was set up, in the sense of where it was, and the location was really cool, and the monsters were awesome, and the storyline was good. I was also never really a fan of Neverwinter Nights. It was a little bit too much D&D for my liking, and I never really got into it. But I was a big fan of Icewind Dale, and I have played D&D to the fact where I have, in fact, one of the original D&D board games. It was like an introduction to D&D, and it was called D&D Dragon Flame, or Dragon Fire, or something like that. I don't know what it was called. But it was good one way or the other. I had a lot of fun with that. And I did play other pen and papers after that, but D&D just stick in my mind as a good time. Now, when D&D Online came out, I must say I was not all that enthralled, because the problem with D&D is the setting was very generic. And therefore, I was not really getting into it. Funnily enough, and this is a little bit of ancient station history for you, an ex-staff member by the name of Leto and a couple of others, as I recall, were going to start an offshoot of WoW Radio called Stormreach Radio, and this was part of our expansion plan, which never really got off the ground a couple of years ago. And we were going to start a small DDO station, and some of our staff were going to go over there. But they went and played DDO and found out that DDO did not have enough content to justify it, thereby said, no, it ain't going to happen. So, no DDO podcasts, no DDO shows ever happened. And this has happened with a number of different games. We were going to do the same thing with Warhammer, and it didn't hold our interest for long enough. But I got back into DDO as a result of the fact that it's going free in a couple of weeks, and I got into the closed beta and I tried it out. Now, here's what I liked about it. There's a couple of things about DDO that leave WoW in the dust. And these what should be kind of obvious to you. The first thing is the fact that it's full of dungeons. Like, it's a giant sack of dungeons. Basically, everything is a dungeon, with the exception of some of the wider open area quests in the larger roaming zones, which I might add are instanced. Everything is in a dungeon. Even these wider open zones are full of frickin' dungeons all over the place. Dungeons upon dungeons. I love dungeons. And I love loot. And I love bosses. And every single instance in DDO has that. And they're all over the place. Even the tiniest quest is probably in its own dungeon. And it's got loot. And it's got kobolds and boxes to blow up. And bosses to fight. And puzzles. And the GM narrator, which is an amazing idea, because it's really immersive. Yeah, they've got a pre-canned set of GM narrations. You know how the GM goes, like, you enter a corridor, it is cold. You sense something in the distance, blah, 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 you hear this. And it keeps you going through the quest and narrates part of the quest for you. And some of it's a little bit obvious, but some of it also gives clues as to what to do next. And the objectives, generally speaking, are always not so convoluted, but multi-staged. As in, you can go to here and do this, then you follow up with this and this, and you invariably fight a boss at the end and get a treasure chest with something cool in it. It takes what WoW did with questing and takes it to the natural next level. It is to some degree the same. Here's the thing, WoW was great because it had a quest and it gave you a little treat at the end of it. Now, DDO does the same thing, but it gives you a mini instance, a dungeon. And you can do it on multiple difficulty levels. Not all of them, but most of them have multiple difficulty levels, some of which are designed for more advanced characters and some of which are designed for groups. And of course, the level of the loot and the mobs that you fight and stuff increases as you go through. So there's a lot of play there. Now, in WoW, I love the dungeons, yeah? The instances in WoW are the best things. Raiding is the best thing. Running instances is just awesome. The fact that DDO is basically nothing but that is great. Now, what it also has is a more involved combat system that WoW does not have, yeah? As in, it's got collision detection. That's a good start. Which means that, as a tank, you can obstruct enemies from getting to your more vulnerable group members. You can actually physically block. You can physically dodge. And there are a myriad of traps and things that you will want to do that on. Now, the combat is actually dice roll based. It rolls a d20 and it shows you on the screen every time you swing. But your swing, you've actually got to swing your sword, or whatever, or cast your spell, and aim it. And if you don't, then it's not going to hit in the first place. And the problem that I've got with WoW is that it's a lock-on based combat system that is basically totally uninvolved. Yet you're utterly detached from it. You're bashing the keys, and it's like fireball, 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 fireball. And whether or not it hits or misses is based entirely on your resist chances and stuff like that. It's not involved. It's going through the motions, whereas if I'm a mage or a wizard or a sorcerer in DDO, then I'm throwing spells. Literally, I'm throwing spells, and I've got to aim them, and I've got to see if they hit or not. And yes, there are dice rolls involved, but the fact that I have to aim actually gets me more involved with the combat. It makes the combat more visceral, it makes it more enjoyable. It grips me more. It has a greater sense of immersion. Now, WoW, because of all of its big open spaces, is actually handicapped in that respect. There are a number of games whereby you have instanced content. There's a lot of instanced content in, say, City of Heroes. There's a lot of instanced content in Guild Wars. Yeah? But I think DDO does it best because it understands that what has made some of these games, including WoW, possibly at the forefront of it, really successful, is the ability to go into dungeons and do cool stuff. And the end game is based on dungeons, and you have dungeons breaking up the monotony of questing. Sorry if I'm sort of falling apart on air here. I'm suffering the last dregs of this stupid disease. We will survive. We will finish the damn show. And yes, it does break up the monotony of the questing. That's a good thing. Because the questing is probably the best way to disguise the grind, but if you put all the questing in the dungeons, then that's even better. I mean, you have people that go out of their way to not do questing outside of dungeons in WoW. It happens. Not only because dungeon crawling is actually extremely efficient, but it rewards you with great gear, and dungeon encounters are generally more involved. Like, for instance, you can't make as many mistakes in a dungeon. The combat is more involved in that respect. Outside, you can just run away. You can't do that. You cannot switch off in the middle of a dungeon. You've got to focus. You've got to work with your teammates, and playing with friends, of course, makes everything more enjoyable. That we will not dispute. Now, I think actually Wrath of the Lich King really fell over in this regard. Because I'll tell you what, how many quests did you see that involved going into raid instances? So few. So criminally few. I mean, it doesn't tie it in with the story. I mean, Naxxramas is a prime example. You see this on the forums all the time. Where are the quests that get you into Naxxramas? Look at the massive quest hub that was in Light's Hope Chapel. Look at it. Look at all of the quests and the world event that led up to Naxxramas. Look at how it tied it all together with the storyline. Look at how it made it worthwhile to go in there again and again and again, not only for loot but for questing too. From a storyline perspective, from an immersion perspective. It was worth it. It's exactly the same thing that happens with the 5-man instances. You have the quest to get you in there, and it makes it more involved, and it makes the leveling seem just that little bit more interesting. And yet, they forgot that. There's nothing. Nothing for Sartharian, nothing for Naxxramas, nothing for Ulduar. Is there going to be anything for the Crusaders Colosseum? Heck if I know. But that's not a good start. Your two big pieces of raid content for the first, let's see, what would that be? 8-9 months of the expansion. You got no quest, no reason to go there other than this is endgame content, go do it. And that ain't involved. Not in the slightest possible way. Whereas DDO content, yeah, those dungeons are involved. You get in there for a specific purpose. The dungeon crawling is there for a reason. And indeed, that is all you do most of the time. And I'm fine with that, because I love dungeons. Do the rest of you love dungeons? I would imagine that you do. I would imagine you love dungeons. How could you not? They're the best things about WoW. They're always well designed. They're always involved. The boss fights are always creative. The set pieces are, generally speaking, very, very good. Wrath's dungeons were no exception. A lot of very good dungeons with Wrath. No question about that. Now, with Wrath going the way of, hey, we can make quests more interesting, it does make me worry a little bit that they will design less dungeons for the new expansion. I hope they don't. In fact, I hope they take a long, hard look at DDO and the way that Guild Wars works and actually realize that instance content is a good idea. Yep, WoW came up with instance content for a very specific purpose, and yet doesn't use it anywhere near as much as you might imagine. Here's a tip. Generally speaking, the people I want to play with are the people in my group, in my guild. They're my friends. Yeah? Those are the people I want to play with. Now, if I can play with them in my own little private instance, I am way happier than having to compete with 100 other guys for the drop, or whatever reason. Now, you might say, oh, well, that takes away from, well, PvP. Well, PvP's been dead for years. Don't even get me started on that. Now, maybe the new expansion will introduce a brand new way of world PvPing, but somehow I doubt it. It's a sad commentary on the state of the WoW player base at the moment that I would rather be in an instance away from them than playing with them. But that's the way it is. WoW has a lot of very bad players, a lot of very obnoxious players, people that I do not want to interact with on a social basis. What I do want to do is interact with my friends and my guildies, my colleagues as it were. I want to be involved in something that is genuinely challenging all the time. That is how I want to level. And that is why I am enthralled by DDO. That is why I will most likely play DDO alongside playing WoW when I come back to do my 10-man stuff. But to me, the fact that DDO has grabbed me on the leveling scale really does speak volumes. And it does have a lot of lessons to teach. Those quests are just so more involved. They really are. Yes, some of the content is repetitive. There isn't enough content to do everything only once and get to the level you want to do. But you know what? I did strat 10 times and... sorry, 10 times. But try 100! How many times have I done strats? So many. If I've done strats, say, 10 times, and I enjoyed it all 9 of the 10, then it was worthwhile. If I have to do everything in DDO 4 times, but it's fun every time, then I'm fine with that. Better than going to collect 20 more bear asses, I would rather be in a dungeon dodging traps, fighting monsters, getting loot, opening chests, investigating, looking for hidden doors, passages, using skills, working with my teammates. That's what MMO gameplay is all about. Teamwork, team play. Let's see some more. Seriously. My name is TotalBiscuit, you're listening to Blue Plz here on WoW Radio. I'll be right back with the illusion of choice. Assuming I'm not dead by the end of this music break. And yes, I do have a special song for you coming up at the end. Oh dear, an abomination. I'll be right back after this, folks. Enjoy. You're listening to the podcast, an archive of Blue Plz. Music was removed due to copyright concerns. If you'd like to hear the music, tune in live on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That is 3 p.m. EST on WCRadio.com. So yeah, I'm pretty quiet on Vent, you know? Kinda laid back. Oh my god, you noobs! DPS the ends! Just like to chill out, kick back, relax, raid with my friends. No worries, no stress. How is that even possible? Are you 7 different shades of stupid? Move out of the fire! It's important to make sure my orders come through loud and clear. I'm a bit, well, shy. I'm not particularly loud or anything. My last event server was really poor quality. Tank it, for heaven's sakes! Tank it! How can you be so monumentally freaking terrible? I discovered UGT Ventrilo servers. Amazing quality, great prices, and they're so reliable. It was perfect in every way. I mean, I was a pretty calm guy before, and now I've got even less reasons to worry. Why? Why do I raid with you people? Why not get one of your own? UGTservers.com. That's UGTservers.com. You'll be glad that you did. It's really helped me find my zen, you know? Yes, indeed, folks, last 15 minutes of the show, and I appear to still be alive. That's always a good thing. I think I'm fighting through the swine flu with brute force and ignorance. Ah, yeah. That fresh mountain air.
In the mountains.
Ah, yes. It's funny, I should really crash the stream more often because I get loads more people in the IRC channel. So hi guys! If you're in the IRC channel at the moment for the live show, welcome to the party. If you are not, then you are a lonely sociopath. You should come to our live shows. We air on Fridays at 8 PM British Standard Time. That is 3 PM EST. I believe that's 9 PM the European Server Time. And other times in other places in other times. Right, before we do the illusion of choice today, I'm going to read a couple more emails. Just to cap off the show. Got an email here, dear Mr. Biscuit. I agree with you that instances are the best things in WoW, but what has been your favourite instance raid thingy up to now? Classic TBC, Wrath of the Lich King. Just wondered, also, do you like Warcraft 1, 2, and 3? Well, yes, I like Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. Who the hell doesn't? If you're a discerning RTS player, then you should like all of those three things. They're great. Warcraft 2, actually, was my personal favourite. I must have played that forever. Wonderful game. My favourite raid instance. Well, I'll give you my favourite instance and my favourite raid instance. My favourite 5-man is Scholarmance. Scholarmance is a wonderfully designed instance. It's fantastic. It's got a great theme with it, some really fun bosses. And I like the systems whereby there's a lot of stuff built in there. There's a lot of questing as well. Always a good thing. A lot of mysteries within that place. A lot of things to discover. And I like that very, very much. Raid instance-wise, that is a tricky one. That's a really, really tricky question. I'm going to be honest here and actually say my favourite raid instance of all time is Zul'Gurub. And yes, I might be sick of it now, but I wasn't at the time. I think Zul'Gurub is an excellent example of great design. It's got some really fun bosses in there that were initially very challenging. It was well put together. Again, a lot of quests associated with it. Big quest hub, very good rep grind associated with it. Very well set up. Great last boss. A lot of creativity, a lot of good gear to be had. It was a wonderful bridge between 20 and 40-man content. I still think it's one of the best instances they've ever put together raid-wise. And it's funny, I can never pronounce instances. I should just say dungeons. Really, dungeons is easier. Now, I'm not reading that, because quite frankly, that's way too long. Don't do that. And I'm not reading that either. Don't send me walls of text, guys. No! Absolutely not. I've got one here from the Elite Hacksaw. TB, you're being misled. Think about what we've actually seen. What was actually data mined? It was textures for bandit masks. I would suggest these are for upcoming seasonal events. Well, maybe, maybe not. But I have a feeling that BB from MMO Champion has inside information that we do not have. So it wouldn't really surprise me all that much. I've also got information about the Battle.net thefts, and Dave Miller, also known as Theranos, says this: the only way they can steal your account and connect it to the Battle.net account is if they already have your login information, meaning the account was compromised. It's just that now it is required that people are just now noticing, oh hey, my account has been hijacked. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. Right, last 15 minutes of the show, folks. It's the illusion of choice. Also known as the illusion of pain. We fight through the illness. Right, so I got an email a couple of weeks ago that I would like to do because I haven't got any other good illusion of choices this particular time around, and this guy wanted to shout at me for not reading it out last week, and I would have to agree with him. Yes, absolutely. You should shout at me for that. Without a shadow of a doubt. Now, it goes along these lines, and the name of this particular thing, which I liked very, very much, I thought it was a great title, was Is WoW Social Masturbation? Yes, that's quite bizarre, isn't it? Is WoW social masturbation? Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, I'll attempt to explain it. Now, obviously, masturbation. Let's go into it. Let's pretend that everyone is a grown-up and we can deal with this without going, tee, he said boobies, or whatever. Masturbation. What is it? It's a replacement for the real thing. At least that's the idea of it, I would imagine. Would I be correct in this assumption? I would certainly hope so. Yes, it is a replacement for the real thing. Now, when you ask, is WoW social masturbation? Well, you also ask the question, is WoW as a social activity a replacement, a stand-in, as it were, for the real thing? Now, as much as I would like to read this email, it seems to have disappeared. So I will just have to go through it and say, hey, well, let's go on with it. Right. Can WoW really provide that social need that we as human beings experience? This is something that I have argued previously and will continue to argue. And it is, to me, an interesting topic of discussion. Is it the same thing? Well, here's the thing about social interaction. Social interaction changes as the human race evolves in terms of its technological capabilities. There are things, say 100 years ago, that would not have been considered social interaction 300 years before that, because of course they had not been invented. And the idea of interacting via letters, pen pals, that was something that just really didn't happen on a large scale before the globalization of the postal service. Socialization via calling people and just talking to them, and that's an incredibly common thing. Indeed, socialites seem to not be able to get away from their mobile phones. They consistently talk to other people and say, hey, what you doing? Apparently that is a social interaction of some description. That is something that was not available, say, 100 years ago, by any stretch of the imagination. We have socialization in as far as we socialize around a particular piece of media. We socialize by going to watch a movie together. We socialize by watching a television program or listening to a radio station or now listening to a podcast. We do all of those things, and that apparently is now classed as socializing, because we're doing it with others. We socialize by going to nightclubs, which of course didn't used to exist. We used to socialize by going to coffee houses and pubs and all that kind of thing. We used to socialize by going to the village dance, all those kind of things. And as technology advances, we always seem to come back to the basic thing. We create technology, particularly communication technology, which allows us to interact with other human beings. Now, why do we do that? Well, we do that because we have this social need. Now, the reason, in my opinion, that MMOs are so popular is MMOs and the rise of MMOs came along with the rise of social media. And by social media, I am talking, of course, about stuff like Facebook, MySpace, all that kind of thing. Social networking, social media, as well as dig.com, Twitter, and all those kind of things. It's a combination of the two. Social networking, social media. Where's the key word? Social, obviously. It involves interacting with other people. You are forced to do so. And indeed, I believe that is in our genes. That is in our makeup. We want to do that. The outsider, well, that's not normal. We as a human race have survived by our ability to socialize and create groups of people, create society, social society. Where does the word come from? Well, you're not idiots. You don't need to know that. Those outsiders, well, hey, they don't get into the gene pool. Those hermits, those loners, those people who are nihilistic and misanthropic, they don't get into the gene pool because, of course, they're not socially apt. They are not capable of reproducing with some other guy. But obviously, if it's reproducing with another guy, that would be a bit odd if you're male. But, of course, if you're female and you're a loner, well, it would be reproducing with another guy. If you're male, well, one would hope you'd be reproducing with another girl. If that's not the case, well, get out more. So, after all of that, can we then consider that WoW is a legitimate form of socialization? Well, maybe. But I think one of the more important things to look at, instead of debating this, which of course is going to be an endless debate, one way or the other, say, hey, is this new form of doing things with other people actually social? Which, anything that involves doing things with other people for the sole purpose of enjoyment is social. It doesn't matter where or when or how or what medium it's done across. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference. It's all social, one way or the other. It's all socializing. But here's the important part of this email that I grabbed, if I remember correctly, because of course I can't find the damn thing anymore. It's funny, you're Googling through your Google Mail, trying all the different spellings of masturbation, and you can't find anything. Now, usually in anyone else's email account, you'd find thousands of things. Pills, spam, but no, in my email account I keep it nice and clean. I can't find anything about masturbation in my Gmail account. Fantastic. Anyway, the point of this email that it got down to was, do people just log into WoW solely to fulfill a social need? And actually, I would agree, to some degree, yes they do. How many people do you see hanging around those capital cities and not really doing anything of note? Why do they do that? They're not advancing their character, they're not really playing the game. Why do they do it? Well, they do it because, hey, it's social masturbation. They don't have access to a proper method of socializing. By proper, of course, I'm going to use the inverted commas for that one. The more traditional forms of social activity. So what do? They provide a substitute. And indeed, they sit there in a town, in a city or whatever, and actually they get this small amount of social activity because you see other people running around and talking. It's like looking in through the window of a pub as opposed to actually being in it and having a drink with friends. Is that healthy? Well, not really. I think it fosters a very negative attitude. I think people should be getting involved with other people and actually doing something worthwhile, something fun, something recreational. Don't expect to simply get socializing via osmosis. It doesn't work that way. You can't just stare in from outside in the cold. You gotta get involved with people, one way or the other, and if you have to use WoW to do that, then that's fine. I've met plenty of people through WoW who I would consider to be friends. And why do I think that? Because, hey, I've interacted with them enough in WoW, and indeed outside of WoW, to have created some kind of friendship. Now, friendship, in my opinion, has a wide variety of different definitions. It's got a wide variety of levels. There are people like close friends that I say meet on a weekly basis, and then there are people on WoW who I'd still consider friends, or people within the WoW radio community who I've interacted with outside of World of Warcraft or whatever. Yeah, they're friends. And of course there's guildies who I would maybe not consider friends but colleagues. There are still people who I would consider friends. They may be a different level of friend, a little bit more distant on the tree of friendship. Yep, not a question about that. But they're still friends to one way or another because I've actually socialised with them. And I want to socialise with them. I want to talk to them again. I want to do things with them. I want to engage in activities. And that's what I would suggest everyone does, to be quite honest with you. If you're going to hang around in a city, then go and talk to somebody. Seriously, go and talk to them. Talk to guildies. And to be honest, if you're talking to guildies, well, why do you need to be in World of Warcraft to do it anyway? Go on the Ventrilo server. Talk to them on MSN. Talk to them in an IRC chat room. Just do something that involves actually socialising and not just hoping to catch the social bug because you happen to be hanging around someone who's been infected by it. Doesn't work that way, folks. I'm very sorry. My name is TotalBiscuit. You have been listening to Blue Plz on WoW Radio. I've got shout-out time, folks, before I go and collapse in a heap. Shout-outs to the Murloc@gmail.com. That is the Murloc@gmail.com. Or you can Twitter me or tweet me or whatever you would like to do to me. Actually, no, don't tell me about that. @TotalBiscuit. That's @TotalBiscuit. Or send me a message on IRC. That's IRC.MMO-IRC.com # or pound WoW Radio. Yes, indeed. So here we go. I like cookies. Kenna has a shout out to my guild Seal of Fate on Agrimar EU. Is that like a seal, as in a seal that you can club, or a seal that you wear on your... whatever? I have no idea. It's crazy. Could be. Can I get a shout out to... Can I get an In the Mountains ×2 and a Jormungand Worms? No, you may not, because I'm mean. Okay.
In the mountains.
That's all you have, and you're not having Jormungand Worms. Not yet. Patience is a virtue, seldom found in you. Can I get a shout out to Mr. NNJ and Davlin for a fun D&D game yesterday? That's from Shinoda. Shout out to Michael Jackson. Epic Tomb of Jormungand Worms. Okay, well, I don't think he's around to hear that. A shout out to Knight of the Roxbury on Drollbane US. That's from Theranos. Can I get a shout out to Hornshade for getting punched in the face? Heal yourself, silly tree. Love you much. Druid person wanted to bite in the mountains with Jormungand Worms. No! A shout out to Shinoda, Davlin, Torrenton, Snapple Monkey, my girlfriend Pale Princess, and my guild Bound on Mr. NNJ. Hey, Guild Bound, that's actually the guild of Stompolina and co from Rarcast, as I recall. Here's hoping you have more luck than we have with guilds. We always make them explode in drama bombs, it's great. Agadni, what the hell is that? That's really badly spelled. I assume that's a shout out to Agadni Steamwheel Cartel. Shout out to me for dinging 28 in RL. My new skills are lousy. Yes, they tend to be. A shout out to The Sims 2 for filling my time until I get a new WoW time card. And can I get a shot out for Listen to You show with a friend? Why, yes, you can. Your name is Vodka, and I think, quite frankly, you've had too much of it by the sounds of it. A shout out to my guild Rain of Fire on Doomhammer EU. Also, I got a brace on this week, Hurty Teeth. That's from the Mastroff. A big shout out and thank you to Asketh of Doomhammer EU for getting me through 2 weeks of Irish Camp Hell on Earth. What the hell's Irish Camp? I don't know what that is. It's like... Well, yes, we are here to make sure that you, when you leave this camp, are the most Irish of the Irish. Oh, yes. A shout out to Zerthosef, Marilyn, and Nicola from Illuminati on Chandris US. That's from 9/11 Guilty Jerk. And one last shout out. A shout out to Saberwolf for being the most awesome guild leader around. And one last shout out, in fact, to Buff.net, who are sponsors for BlizzCon. You should go check the site out. Submit some articles, folks. Make that a worthwhile community to be in. Buff.net. That's BUFFD.net. Get it off the ground. They'll appreciate it, so will we. It's beneficial to the entire WoW community. You are doing good things. You are doing good things. My name is TotalBiscuit. You've been listening to Blue Plz. I'm about to go and fall over. Now, I've been doing good things this entire show. It's time to ruin it. It's time to squander all of my goodwill. This is another parody song as TotalBiscuit ruins yet another perfectly good track. I must say, I can't sing like Ozzy Osbourne can. And if you want to hear Ozzy Osbourne, well, hey, he's playing at BlizzCon 2009. The name of the track that I'm parodying is bark at the moon. And I call it Jawmanga Worms. Good night. There's a song about the miracle of 3.2. Let's break the silence, getting ready for this raid. My guild is ready, or maybe someday I'll get laid. Then when I think that I've seen it all, Blizz puts in not one but two Jawmanga Worms. Years on the roster, back when it was Lucifron. Cleared all the bosses, Kale thanks to Yoxeron. But now a boss that will make us squirm. Blizz stumps us all, yes, with two Jawmanga Worms. Whoa, 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 Jawmanga Worms. Oh, we raid the PTR to no avail. We wipe until our gear is gone. Gone. Blizz creativity has reached its peak, but they've returned to prove us wrong. So wrong. Well, maybe. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm entirely floored. I mean, literally. Surprise out of nowhere. Couldn't have seen it coming. Never seen such amazing creativity. Inventiveness. Unbelievable. Absolutely astonishing. Not one, but two Jawmanga Worms. Holy crap. I cannot express just how excited I am for this instance. Oh yeah. Bring on the worms, baby. Re-rated old one. Maligots and South as well. Thanks for the content, but next was a living hell. The bleeding edge, well, they cry for more. Now Blizz is poised to deliver two Jawmanga Worms. Oh yeah, Jawmanga Worms. Fear the Jawmanga Worms. Not one but two Jawmanga Worms. Are you guys ready? Are you psyched? Are you pumped for the circular arena, whereby you will find not one, but two Jawmanga Worms? You may even find that it's in the mountains. Stunning and astonishing. A masterpiece. You have been listening to the podcast and archive of Blue Plz, a show that airs exclusively on WCRadio.com on Fridays at 8 p.m. British Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. EST. You can check out our archives on our website at WCRadio.com and subscribe to our RSS feeds. Don't forget to rate and review us using iTunes, and if you wish to leave constructive criticism, that is always appreciated.